You're listening to episode number 13 of the Farmers Market Podcast. From living a chaotic farm life to overcoming a child hit with cancer, now he's living a life of gratitude and sharing his knowledge with the world. We continue our talk with Ray Tyler of Rosecreek Farms and part 3 of a 3-part series, and Radish Red Alert. What the heck happened to my latest crop, and why is timing everything when it comes to these vegetables? Plus, you've got to have water to grow. But what's the best way? Hopefully, my problems are not yours, but I'm guessing they might be. Be sure to subscribe to this show right now so you'll get updated on the next, latest, and greatest episode. But for right now, let's get started.
Get ready for this.
Wow, I am blown away by the response I've been getting on Facebook.
Welcome to a brand new episode of
the Upstate's Farmers Market Podcast.
The following program is for adult audiences only.
You are listening to
Hey y'all, thanks for having me on the Farmers Market Podcast.
Relax and Enjoy.
We are one of the few tea growing farms in the United States.
Hi, this is Chris Thurman from BioWay Farm.
Hi, this is Kristen with Earth and Organic.
Hi, this is Mark Jones from Cedar Falls Farm.
Thanks for listening.
And now your host.
Great day, everybody. My name is Stefan, and you're listening to the Farmers Market Podcast, the show that talks to farmers, homesteaders, craft makers, small businesses, and much, much more. We are proudly based right here in the upstate of South Carolina, where we keep it fresh. We keep it local. Here we talk about all things farmers market related. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Soundcloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. And of course, you can become a supporter. And of course, you can become a supporter of scafarms.com. It's the home base for my farm online and the Farmers Market Podcast. Now, please share with all your friends on Facebook and other social channels. Now, I say this on every episode, but be sure you like, comment, and subscribe to any one of those channels that were mentioned. And let me know if there's a local farm or farmer or local business that you would like to hear on the show. We all want to know a little bit more about the people who make the products and the services that are provided and makes them tick. Today's guest started his farm adventure back in 2009 with his lovely wife. The two have been cranking out massive lettuce production in Tennessee, and he not only puts in the work on his farm, but he shares his knowledge online with new and experienced farmers across the globe. And that's where we pick up this third part of a 3-part series with Ray Tyler and Rosecreek Farms. Enjoy.
So people can find you in grocery stores. People can find you online. So listeners in South Carolina can obviously find you online. But you also have the ability to, and this is kind of how I learned about you and your farm. You're educating young farmers, experienced farmers. You're doing some creative things in terms of teaching farmers based on your life experience. I mean, you're basically... You're like, you mentioned this earlier, you like talking to older folks because, of what they say and the wisdom they have and some of the regrets. I like talking to folks because they have experience that I don't have, and I can tap into that without actually going through all the pain and the agony. And so I look at folks like you and I go, I don't want to do that for 6 years and spin my wheels like a hamster. I don't want to do that. I don't have that much time left, so I don't want to do it. So I'm like, if you can give me nuggets of wisdom, then I'd rather do that. I put you in the same league as you, Curtis Stone, Jean Fortier up in Canada, all those guys. I put you in the same class because I'm like, those guys are putting that information out there for free. And it's not just for people that want to be farmers. It's for people that if they just want to grow things in their backyard. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing from the online standpoint and about your master classes, as you call it.
Yeah, well, I think to your point, again, I think over the years we've just gotten a lot of questions and demand for kind of how we're doing things. I don't have a lot of time to do like a YouTube channel, and I enjoy talking to folks, and I have found even, I was doing a lot of phone call consulting for a time, but again, that just takes a lot of time, and it can be challenging to do that well, that benefits the other person. And so what we've done is we've done some on-farm workshops because, I can take that day aside, and that's easier to scale than it is like an individual phone call.
Right.
But what's even more is that not everyone can make the drive, and it's fairly expensive. We're very rural, and so we have to hire a lot of people that travel to help do it, and so our cost for those things are expensive. I think they're still, I would say, one of the most valuable things a person can do. There's something about going to a farm, seeing it for your own eyes, and meeting other like-minded people like yourself. But, the online space is, it's a lot more feasible. People can go through, an online format at their own pace. You can do it, any time of the year. And so I think for me it's been, how do I help farmers? And the way I kind of looked at it is, I'm kind of going back to myself, the Ray Tyler, version in 2009 of going, what was I looking for so bad?
Right.
I did my first year. I did spend a tremendous amount of money. I paid someone to come to my farm to help me get started. I paid him for 2 days. It was a personal kind of coaching. Paid a lot of money for that, but it got me 2 years ahead. And again, I was young, and I don't want to. So, anyways, at that time, it's like, what? If I could have had some online course, or if I could have found someone who's on a small scale that I could have paid to consult, phone calls. And so I just basically wanted to create a method of I knew that I wanted to grow lettuce in 2009. I saw it. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But none of that existed of how to do this year round. And one of my other pain points was selling. I don't preferably like asking people for money. And I would rather just grow the food, right? And then learning all there's all these different outlets. Which one do I want? How do I do it? Where do I find the packaging supplies?
Right.
I've learned and found so many different things. I'm basically doing this for the 2009 version of myself, and what is all the things that I wish I would have known, all the options from seed to store of this is the methods, this is how we're setting it up for really hot humid environments. And it's not just for people in the U.S. We've got people in Australia and other parts of Europe that are really hot as well, who, in Africa, who have similar climates to ours, and they're now implementing our system in other parts of the world. And so, again, I think on a worldwide scale, there's demand for lettuce, and it's one thing we do really well. I mean, there's natural disasters. We definitely lost a lot of lettuce this past season. But we've been able to still have, consistent production year-round. Right. And even through all those obstacles. So, we've really focused on this kind of lettuce masterclass, really training people through that. I've been really, really enjoying that format, and I feel like I'm really seeing a lot of, people they're making more money.
And how can people find out about the masterclass?
Yeah, they can kind of go to our website. Go to lettucemasterclass.com. We do a few launches a year, and you can kind of get on that waiting list, or I'll supply you with some information too, and you can share that with your listeners. That would be awesome. Yeah, there's some ebooks that we've created that's available as well. There's a few different ways to do that, but what we've done is, since I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of blogs and YouTube, is I've been able to get a team of filmmakers and editors, and to basically come and help me organize and put all this together.
Wow. So, I've seen some of the snippets, and they're amazing. Yeah, some of the snippets are amazing, and I see the production that you're doing, and I know it takes a lot of time just to do what you're doing, and then to add on there to train people or to educate people and to do it in a format that's easy to digest for folks like me, because I'm a simple guy. I've told people on different episodes that I try to simplify my life. My wife may not think so, but I try to simplify it as much as possible. So I know I've taken a lot of your time, but I know the listeners, it's always good to know the story behind the farmer and to know what makes you tick and how you operate, because it not only helps folks who are buying from you understand what they're not just buying lettuce. They're buying a process, they're buying a family, they're buying a farmer, they're buying an ideal. And when people buy, and so that sometimes is hard to convey when you're at a farmer's market in about 30 seconds where you're telling somebody about your lettuce. It's different. It's totally different atmosphere when you know the person who's growing your food. And I tell people, I eat what I grow. So I'm not at a store. I'm not thousands of miles away, and I don't care. I actually care that you are eating my food because I want to know if it's good. I want to know if you're satisfied. And if it's not, what can I do to make it better? Or maybe I can show you or lead you to another farmer that's growing something that you like. So that's kind of how I think every farmer kind of feels that way to some degree. Now, we've gone over a ton of information, but this is the part of the show where I get just a little bit more personal, as if I haven't already gotten personal.
Yep.
Can you share with our listeners one or two things that, and I have somebody calling in. Wait, hold on. Who is that? Hold on 1 second.
No problem.
Hold on. Hopefully it'll go away. All right. It may not go away. All right, that should be fine. All right, I'm going to start this up. Ray, this is the part of the show where we get to know a little bit more about you and what makes you tick. Can you share with our listeners one or two things that you've learned about life? Maybe it was a lesson you learned after a difficult challenge or hardship, of which you've had many, or maybe about running your business and something that, life threw at you, much like with your daughter getting cancer. That's just a great lesson for you, and it would be for our listeners.
Yep. Two things. And one is gratitude. And, I think life is difficult and it's full of suffering. And, my story is not unusual to millions of other people in this world who go through suffering and many hardships. It's easy to, when you go through a life-threatening hardship like that, to feel sorry for yourself. But the problem is that it makes the world dark and everything seem like the universe, people are out to get you. But I think if you can, one thing I learned is to every day actually be grateful for small things. There's so many things to be grateful for. And so that has been a huge thing for me. And just practically of my daughter's, just informed that she's got, 2 weeks to live. But I've got, 3 other really healthy children. My wife is healthy. We love each other. And there's, hundreds of things if you really can be still. And verbally, whether it be writing them down or saying them out loud, things that you're truly grateful for. And take like 2 minutes and just really meditate on those few things that you're grateful for. So if it's, clean, fresh air, like just breathe in that air and just, and thank God for those things, So I think that's been a huge, that's definitely that's really helped me get through a lot of hardships in life. And something that I'm always trying to be in a constant state of gratitude. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. So
right.
That's very hard to do. The second thing is taking responsibility. And, it's so easy in our culture to blame someone else for our problems. We can blame our parents because they didn't raise us right. We blame our coworkers because they hurt our feelings. We blame the economy because it's not buying our product. We blame the weather because they're washing everything out. It's so easy to play the blame game, but as soon as you take responsibility and really make a commitment to believe that anything that happens to me, it's my responsibility to take charge and try to do something about it. And it makes for a much happier, fulfilled life. So, in a practical thing, if you have an employee and they make a mistake, usually, if I'm really honest about it, it's my fault. Because maybe I wasn't specific about it. Or maybe I didn't set up his environment. There's usually something if I really think, or I hired the wrong person. Maybe that was, in the end, whatever the case, if you take responsibility for anything that goes wrong, if your child does something wrong, something really disastrous happens, obviously there's activations you can't do nothing about, but maybe you could have, in my case of rain, if I would have installed better drainage years ago, or if I would have had a different farm, it would have this problem wouldn't have happened. Does that make sense? So I think those two things, having an attitude of gratitude and taking responsibility for your life, has really made me a much happier person, and I think it's helped me overcome a lot of hardships.
Wow. You know what? I don't think I could have said it any better than that. I mean, gratitude and taking responsibility. Those are two things. If you're a parent, and even if you're not a parent and you're making something or creating something, they go hand in hand. You're thankful for the opportunity to be able to do something that God has given you. And I'm a big believer that God gives us all talents and abilities. It's up to us 100%. To find out what they are, and to be responsible. You're right. A lot of people do play the blame game, or they become that victim mentality. And if you flip that script and you say, you know what, I'm not a victim. I'm going to be a creator of my own destiny. It's a totally different script. It's a different movie. It's a different book that you are laying out for yourself. And wow, that is amazing. And Ray, I just want to thank you for taking the time. I know I've taken too much of your time, although I think it's raining where you're at just as well. So maybe you're not out in the field right now. So
that's right. That's right.
I want to thank you for sharing Rosecreek Farms. I'm sure I'll probably have you on, or I'll be at your farm. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I've got to figure out the logistics of all that. But I want to thank you for sharing everything you shared with us today.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to talk to you for sure.
Now, I want to thank Ray, and I want to thank him for sharing Rosecreek Farms with us today. Again, that's the third part of a three-part series. You can find Ray and his farm at rosecreekfarms.net. Of course, he's on Facebook and he's on Instagram. And I would encourage you to go back and listen to episodes 11 and 12 to hear the complete story of how Ray got started, all the misfortunes that he had, and then in the second part, how he and his wife had to deal with the reality that one of their daughters had stage 4 cancer, and how he overcame that. And of course, in this last episode, you got to hear a little bit about what he does now and how he educates the rest of us. Okay, so let's talk radishes. Now, I'm going to give you my take on radishes. I actually love eating radishes. I'm not a big hot fan. I say hot, like a very strong radish. That's not really my cup of tea. But I do like growing various types of radishes. And in the past couple of years, I've grown two, and one of the varieties didn't produce at all, so I figured maybe it's just the wrong climate. But however, the other radishes I love are the French breakfast, which I know was recommended on several different market farmers or market gardeners, and then I like the little Roxanne. I believe that's the variety out of Park Seed, but I have grown both of those varieties, and I really do like the French breakfast radishes. I will cut them up. I'll chop them up. I'll even just eat it plain, literally right after I wash them. So those are the varieties that I like. But here's what I'm learning about radishes. Now, my first year, it was great because when I planted radishes, I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of getting the soil prepped and ready. So when they started to germinate, I thought, hey, looky here. I'm doing great. I'm a farmer. I've got radishes in the ground and they're germinating. I didn't realize radishes are really, really good germinators. I guess if that's the best, if they're such a, the germinator. I didn't know that they were very prone and they can easily germinate. I just didn't know that. I guess about the entire radish spectrum, they're fairly easy to produce, or they're fairly easy to germinate. So my I was quickly enamored with the idea. I've got radishes. Look at here, radishes. So I quickly realized though that when they started growing, that you have to pick them at a certain time, otherwise you'll actually get a bad crop and they'll get pithy. And if you let them go too long, you miss the window. Sometimes they don't get pithy, but the flavor is so intense because they've been maturing during this time. And also the heat, in South Carolina, it gets pretty hot. As the heat intensifies, so does the flavor. I mean, nobody told me that. I guess I missed that when I was reading on how to grow radishes. So here's what I have learned, and this is just a takeaway. I have learned that germination is easy. So if you ever wanted to plant something for your kids or something in a small garden, radishes are the ticket. Now, I would encourage you to plant radishes you like. French breakfast, the reason I like them is they are not very strong in terms of the spectrum of being very, very strong and intense in flavor. They're somewhat in the middle to lower end, in my opinion. Now, I have the Roxanne radishes. They're a little bit more intense. And so if you're going to grow a vegetable and you want it to produce or you want it to germinate and you want to see the whole process, whether it's for you or for your kids, or you're just starting out, man, this is probably one of the best vegetables to start out with because of the germination. Another mistake I made in year one, I direct seeded, obviously. I don't know too many people who use soil blocks or do any kind of plug trays for radishes because they just germinate really well. So you direct seed. I used a seeder, and it wasn't the greatest seeder. It's the Earth. I think it's the Earth Way, and I used that, and it was fine. But I realized the radishes I planted them too close together. And so you do have to thin them out. Otherwise, that root tends to want to go down and continue to find space. And if it doesn't have enough space, you'll end up having several different radishes, the roots kind of tied in and twisted together. And then they really don't mature the way you want them to do or want them to be. And they're just not attractive. I mean, they may have the same flavor. They're just not attractive. So you do have to do some thinning out. And if you can do that on the front end while you're direct seeding, it's a whole lot better than trying to thin them out once they start growing, at least in my opinion. But you still may have to thin them out. Even the ones I've pulled just yesterday, I still had to thin them out. Now, here's what I did find out. So that was year one. I learned of germination, really, really good germination. Secondly, about the spacing, about having some space in between and the fact that you may need to thin them out. And then I learned about the heat. The hotter it gets and the longer the radish stays in the ground, the more intense the flavor. So I did learn those three things. I had great looking radishes when I went to go pull. It's about 4 or 5 days ago. They've been in the ground for about 3 weeks. And 4 or 5 days ago, I start pulling a couple of big ones. And I'm like, wow, these are great big radishes. And then I noticed when I pressed the actual radish, it was like air. Like there was air in there. And then I popped it open. And of course, now the middle has got this hollow, kind of basically hollow look to it now. So now I know I waited too long. So with radishes, timing is everything. Not all of my radishes that I planted are that way. It's just I realized there's quite a few that are very, I mean, it's nothing I would sell at the market. They still have good flavor to them, but they're just kind of what they call pithy. and that's not really what you want. You want a good crisp, root. You want it to be able to be able to slice into salads, or to be able to eat fresh, and you don't want that hollow, pithy type of radish. So I hope I hope that little tip helps you. The varieties I really like are the Roxanne and the French Breakfast, and I'm trying another one, and the origin is from Germany, and it's got a really deep purple color to it. I forgot the name of the variety. I will get that for you. But I'm trying that, but it's right now, it's not looking really good. And I don't know if it's because of the thinning or just the climate. Again, you have to find vegetables and produce that grow well in your area. I mean, it's great to have all these different varieties, but if only a couple grow that grow in your soil, not just your area and your climate, in your soil. Hopefully those lessons have helped you in your radish pursuits, but if you want a good vegetable to start out with as far as planting a small garden, or heck, if you're trying to farm, radishes are great. I love the taste of them. You've got my varieties. You know which ones they are. The 3 things I learned, remember, is that they are great germinators, spacing, and timing on when to pull them. And here's another little tip. When pulling radishes, you don't want to pull them to the side. You want to pull them just straight up, because what'll happen is the ones you don't pull, you won't disturb their root system. You won't disturb the plant that's next to it if you're pulling straight up. So I usually take about 5 or 6 in a handful and just pull them straight up. But anyway, the more I plant radishes, the better I'm getting. It is a great little vegetable. And here's another thing: at the farmer's market, when you're selling, or when you're selling anywhere, radishes have vary in color, and it is just a spectacular. I get insanely what's the word? Enamored, passionate. When I guess I'm just filled with this energy when I pull my radishes, I put them in the bin, and I'm spraying them off with water to get all the dirt off, and they just glow. I mean, it's just like a pink, reddish, white glow, and I feel like I'm looking at a rainbow. I mean, I really, if you see some of the pictures on my website and some of the pictures on the Facebook page, it's like a rainbow. I just love the color of the radish. And so when you've paired that deep red pink color next to a really vibrant emerald green lettuce or kale, those 2 colors together, along with maybe some squash and cucumbers, and you put all that, it just makes for a great presentation. It's kind of like beets. I haven't grown any beets yet, but it's like beets with different colors, and you've got white, and you've got this, and you got I mean, it just makes for a spectacular visual presentation. So you're not only stimulating your customers in terms of purchasing, you're visually stimulating them in terms of the colors. And I just love the French breakfast radishes. I mean, every time I water those things off of the dirt, I just want to look at these. I just want to sit here and look at my radishes. I know how silly that sounds, but I do. I honestly just want to stare. I know I got things to do, but I just literally go, man, those are really cool. Those are pretty awesome, and then they taste, and I just go and I grab one and I eat it. I mean, and that's a really cool color. So, I know it's kind of crazy, but anyway, that's my radish take for today. Watering. Oh my gosh, am I having my issues with watering now? Okay, I have finally decided I'm gonna do it. Farmer's Friend, you guys, I look at your websites. I know you guys have been improving. Even in the past couple of years, you've added more stuff to your website. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to buy Farmer's Friend's irrigation all-in-one hoop house irrigation system, because here's the truth of it. I mean, this is for a market gardener and an urban farmer. Look, when you're starting out, irrigation is one of the hardest things to figure out. It just is. I don't care how many times Curtis Stone does a video and shows how simple it is. It's not. It's somewhat complicated. And I'll be honest with you, drip irrigation, it kind of intimidates me. I don't know why, but it does. It it does. To have this tubing and to set it up and do the locks and to puncture and make sure you got the right pressure going through. You know, I know there's a ton of people out there that know a lot more than me. I really do. But it does intimidate me a little bit. I just much rather put my water, hook it up to a sprinkler, overhead sprinkler system, and just watch it go. You know, when you come from a background of living in subdivisions and you didn't know, farming, it was all new to you. When you come, you're familiar with one kind of or two kind of sprinklers, and that's the one that is the long one that just kind of does the rainbow and just kind of goes zzz, and then comes back over zzz, and you used to jump through it when you were a little kid. I mean, those are that's the sprinkler I'm used to. I'm also used to the twirly ones, the little round ones you put in the yard and they just twirl like in a 10-foot radius. Those are the sprinklers I'm used to. And of course, those sprinklers I'm used to. I love those sprinklers. So my watering woes have been, let's just say I'm improving every season. Last year I really got into I'm going to have tubing. I'm going to have these micro sprinklers. I'm going to have, my hoop house is going to have water coming out. It's going to be set on timers. I did it. It was nice for a while. Then I realized the tubes would get clogged. The small little tubes. I think it's 1/4 inch. No, it may be 1/8 of an inch. And then my micro sprinklers weren't working. And I'm like, okay, this is not right. Something's wrong. Maybe it's a filter. And then my timer, I had one of those 4 split timers. It was getting, there were some issues with that. So, and here's another caveat. I have a well. And when you're out in the country, typically you have a well. You don't have, water coming from the city unless you're an urban farmer, and then you've got water coming from the city. So here's the situation I have. I'm a big hose believer. If you can get hoses and run it from a spigot to I say spigot. I know it's spelled differently. It's SPIGNOT, but I always say spigot. I don't know why. That's just how I was grown up. Anyway, so I'm a big believer in hoses. However, I know a lot of people use PEX. I think that's what it's called, PEX tubing. And they use that and they run it from their well. And it gets very complicated very fast when it comes to plumbing. I'm not an expert in plumbing. What I am knowledgeable on is how to hook up hoses and run one hose to another and then divvy it up. And I'm very good at manual watering, as most of you are. But here's what I've determined. Farmer's Friend. And then most of you guys, if you haven't heard of them, just Google them, Farmer's Friend. I believe it's farmersfriendllc.com. I think it's something like that. But anyway, Farmer's Friend, they do a lot of things for, farmers, small-scale farmers. And they've put things in packages together. Well, the one big thing that I've been missing is I have been piecemealing things. So like, okay, spend $25 for this, spend $5 for this. And then, okay, I'll build it as I go, And so what I've noticed is they have put together a irrigation system for hoop houses or low tunnels. They've got them in different lengths. And so when I saw that, I went, wait a second. All right, finally an irrigation system that if it's already put together or they tell me exactly how to put it together, it should work. I just need to figure out the connection from the hose, because I don't think I'm going to stray away from that, from the hose to the tubing, which I believe there's a couple connectors, both PVC and some tubing connectors that will allow you to do that. So once I've got that part, I think that's what I'm going to opt for in my hoop house, because right now I'm just using hoses and sprinklers. And yes, it is low cost. There's no doubt about it, but I know it's not the most efficient use or the most efficient way to water my plants. And here's the thing. Right now it's mid-spring to late spring here in South Carolina, and the summer is literally right around the corner. And what's going to happen is we're going to hit 80-degree temperatures, 90-degree temperatures, and the low tunnel, once I put the shade cloth on, it won't be that severe, but I'm going to need to have the timing and the water on a timer, much like you do in your subdivisions where you've got your sprinkler system set up. You run it in the morning, maybe one time in the afternoon just to knock the heat off, and then you run it again in the evening, and that way you keep your grass growing. Well, it's the same thing with planting vegetables or anything else. You got to keep water continuously coming to these plants when you don't have water coming from the sky. And so what I'm going to do is probably document a little bit of what I've done. Oh, man, I have so many different setups that I've done just in the past 2 years. I'm almost embarrassed. I'm almost embarrassed that I should have taken enough time and spend a little bit of time, not money, time, in understanding what is the most effective use in my situation. And I think that's the big thing for every small-scale farmer is it's not – you get enamored. You really get and I've used that word a lot during this podcast, but I know this. Here's what I know. I know that I've fallen in love with the idea of seeing what everybody else has. And I look at everything that they have and I go, oh, that's what I want. I want that. But I'm not realizing all the steps that those people had to take to get to where they are now. And it's those steps and those parts of the journey that I don't want to miss out on. I don't want to miss it. So I want to learn from other people, but at the same time, I want to be practical and realistic with what not only I can do on my little place and my little land, but what makes sense to me. Like I said, I am not familiar with a lot of irrigation equipment and tools. What I am familiar with and comfortable with does work. It may not be exactly what somebody else does, and this is what I would encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast. Do what you're comfortable with. Stretch your knowledge base a little bit. But don't go so out of your comfort zone where you throw away things you know work to try something else somebody else is doing and they're just knocking it out of the ballpark. You can't be a Babe Ruth. You can't be a Reggie Jackson by only coming up to the plate once or twice. You have to learn over time how to get really good. If you know something and you know it works, do that and perfect that so that you become really good at doing that skill or that activity, but it doesn't drain you from everything else. And here's what irrigation and figuring out watering has drained me. I mean, I've only been doing this 2 years, and it gets frustrating, it gets complicated, it gets costly, and you start to think, okay, wait. Let's go back to the basics. What's my motto in life? Keep things simple. Keep it simple. Just like sales, they tell you that all the time. Keep it simple. What's simple? I just need to get a water drop from point A to point B. Doesn't matter how I get it there. I just need to get it there. Guys, I am so glad you stuck on for my rambling about water, about radishes, but most importantly, Ray Tyler at Rosecreek Farms. That guy and his wife and his entire family, I wish you all would send your love to him. Give him some attention by just searching his website, going out there, just, go to his Facebook page and just tell him hello. I mean, he's a great class act. And for him to take that much time away from his schedule was remarkable to me. Now, I've got a couple of great episodes coming up. And guess what? Farmers Market, it's not too far away in Fountain Inn, that's for sure. The Fountain Inns and Farmers Market kicks off on the 18th, so be sure to check us out there. Who knows? We may do a live broadcast, live to tape, or it's not even tape anymore. I guess it's live. Anyway, we'll do a podcast out from there maybe. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. If you've got a question, a comment, or concern, hey, just let me know you're out there and that you're breathing. Because I like to talk to people, as you well know, and I like to comment and see what you're doing with your life, your garden, and most importantly, what you're growing for your family or for you. Remember, all the stuff you're buying in a box is probably there's been a lot done to it. Why not, grow it fresh, grow it local? That's kind of my philosophy. So guys, until the next time, my name is Stefan, and you've been listening to the Farmers Market Podcast. Keep it fresh, keep it local.
When the sun goes down tonight.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.